like uh, here also I am into curriculum creation and curriculum for all the fellowships that Goons runs, apart from corporate engagement as well. So 10 years of doing that. Also, I have since 2016, I have been started studying counseling and psychology. A couple of certifications I did here and there. And right now I am also doing diploma in psychology from Symbiosis to also, get a perspective and understanding of the Western frameworks as well.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent.
And my intent is the compassion I feel that I could deliver for my children. Why not extend it for other children as well who might need? Or maybe
Excellent.
I am addressing to my inner child when I was a young girl, a 18-year-old. I didn't have anybody. So I may be addressing to myself in a way.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Couple of things which we can say. Um, I have been on the board of something called a North South Foundation, and also we do something called a Gandhi camp every year for almost 40 years. Dr. Subbarao, S.N. Subbarao, who used to be a follower of Gandhiji, had been coming and spending a week with youth in the Bay Area. So people used to come from New York and Seattle and Midwest and all of them. So we used to have a 1 week camp. And based on Gandhian principles, but essentially Gandhian principles are from Bhagavad Gita. And we continue. He passed away 2-3 years ago, and I'm continuing with that. Similarly, there are variety of youth groups in Samskrita Bharati in the United States. I worked with youth on personality development and various aspects of it. So like this, there are several youth groups that I have been working on bringing the Indic perspectives, and especially from the Bhagavad Gita and Upanishads and meditation, mindfulness, some of this. So there are other groups which I have also heard from, that the health issues, stress issues, burnout, and um, people losing meaning, committing suicide, or attempting to do the suicide. These kinds of things I'm hearing more and more and more, not only in India, but also in United States and Europe. That is something. So the topic which you have taken, and the idea of picking the Bhagavad Gita as a good one to talk to is excellent. The way in which um, I find that this can be addressed is, there are several which have come from the spiritual and religious perspectives. Bhagavad Gita for youth. I have actually a copy of Swami Chinmayananda's book on that. And then I have looked at material Swami Dayananda Saraswati and some of their students have developed. I have seen many of the materials which are there. And when I tried to introduce to different groups, I had a pushback a little bit. If we want to, we will go to spiritual seminars, or we will go to Balavihar, or we'll go to some other type of things. But we would love for you to introduce the topics and some of these from starting from where we are. Like, questions, starting with what are the questions that they have, and what are the kind of answers they have explored before, and what are the places where they go to find answers. Mostly peer group, unfortunately, even though they may be as lost as anybody else, generally they go to, and these days social media, they seem to go. Uh, and then if that is not there, these are not available, then they go to some adults whom they respect, sometimes their teachers, sometimes their uncles and aunts, but rarely parents, and rarely spiritual teachers. There are some who go to spiritual teachers, and I have spent time and I have actually sent to Swami Bodhananda. He had also written a book with a youth some time ago, irrelevant questions. Uh, and that gentleman, by the way, who wrote the book with Swamiji, who had asked several questions, now to a certain extent, he has grown into late 30s. And he actually, from what I heard, he is now spiritually enlightened, according to Swamiji. His name is Akhilesh Iyer, who grew up in Los Angeles, who had used Bhagavad Gita, who had used several such conversations, and he had done computer science, or not computer science, maybe computer related stuff in masters in Carnegie Mellon. He did law degree in masters in Harvard University. He got a psychotherapy masters in what you call New York. And then as he was going through and as he looked at Ramana Maharshi's Who Am I approach, and as he was doing it around 2014, 2015, he got self-realized. He has written books and he teaches, he lives in New York, and he works with some youth and he works with other people as well. So there are cases where people have inquired, people have been skeptical, youth who have been skeptical, all the way from gaining their not only mental health. We have one case, at least that we know of in current times, who have gone to self-realization. So practically using the spiritual work and things like inquiry-based approach, like Ramana Maharshi's inquiry-based approach, and Gita, like what Suresh ji has been working on regarding the questions that the Arjuna has asked. I think he has, several things which he's working on. There is a chat GPT he has developed for Gita. So there are variety of approaches that can be taken. And we have one young man, I do not know whether he is attending the sessions yet. Is Shaurya attending the Gita sessions, and has he started the project, Anant?
Not yet, Prasadji. He's still busy with academic work. So yeah.
I'm sorry?
He's still busy with academic work. End of the month,
Academic. Okay.
he'll be more active.
Okay. Okay. Shaurya is a person who is a young man who is also in his teens, who has taken up, and by the way, he is studying psychology and actually philosophy, if I'm right, in college. And he showed interest, and he is working with us as an intern. And the youth looking at Gita for other youth and health issues, burnout, stress, meaning, mental health. Some of these, he wants to look at it as a youth for other youth using the Bhagavad Gita. So once his academic work is over and once he joins as an intern, he's also going to look at the videos, he's going to look at the LinkedIn and begin to see where it is. And of course, scan and read various other materials that are available on these areas, and he also wants to work with. So we will put him in touch with you as well. That is something that, it will be very good for him to also work with a mother who is looking at it from, like 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, that type of classes when they are working on, that will be there. Let me check with other people what they have, any of the comments, before we'll take it deeper and take a deep dive into some of this. Anybody wants to say? Yeah, Suresh.
Yeah, I can. Thank you, Rashmi ji, for your interest in supporting them and bringing kind of the same compassion that you have for your children to others. So that's very admirable. So there's a few resources that I can kind of point you to, and then also maybe a few suggested kind of directions, depending on kind of where what background the youth kind of like have, etc. So one is, as Dr. Kaipaji was saying, Dr. Raju is a very good teacher. He is my teacher. So he has, we kind of got content recorded by him about 20 plus hours, 22 hours, where there's a summary of each chapter. So I can send that content to you. That's a little bit more adult focused, right? But there is kind of a lot of good content that you can leverage. And then there's a couple of younger women in Seattle. I think Prasadji, you'll be meeting them soon. So they have been teaching some classes for youth and using the concept of stories. Stories are kind of like an attractive way for them to understand, like maybe a story of Dhruva and then connecting it to a Bhagavad Gita verse or a few Bhagavad Gita verses, or something like Kuchela, right, who was Krishna's close friend, and then you connect it to the Patram Pushpam Palam Toyam, etc. So that they have like a more concrete, they have a more concrete way to grasp those things. But it's also like, I think we all grew up with Amar Chitrakatha and kind of a lot of stories, and that's kind of like how we imbibed things without like us kind of really being sat down and specifically told, right? Okay, these are things that we learned a lot of concepts about, or what are the values of Rama, or how did this kind of happen. Then, as Prasad ji was saying, there is like you can leverage technology, right, for things. So I have a few projects that I think Prasad ji was talking about. A couple of them. So one I have been doing is I've been doing a project called 1 minute Gita Gems. It's called OMGG. Right? So how can you kind of either share the key concept of a verse or some concept, like one thing for youth that might be very valuable is, in addition to all the things that you mentioned, is are things like in the 6th chapter, which is like the chapter that we are going to focus on for this week. There's a lot of emphasis on focus, on also self-development, etc. Right? And so that's one technology, and another is like I see a lot of youth are very interested in AI because they see that as kind of changing a lot of things, including kind of education and things. And so I have a few chatbots that I have developed, and those are, so one is like a storytelling chatbot that you can use it to tell a story, and that's a very interactive kind of like way. And then another is one that basically can Gita is full of similes, lots of great similes, but sometimes some of those similes are set in a long time ago, right? And how do you contextualize and then contemporize, as Prasadji was saying, some of those? And so this chatbot will basically look at Gita similes and give you kind of similes that are current, right? So maybe there is a simile about a mirror. You may get a simile about a cell phone, right? Which then youth may be able to kind of like more understand, because that's kind of what they're dealing with like every day. So those are a few strategies but as also as Prasadji was saying, I think it's kind of important to meet where they are, so that you are not forcing anything on them, because youth, at least in the US, they're kind of very resistant to either institutional thing or kind of pushing something onto them. So if you kind of let their curiosity and their thing, then one final thing is that just sounds that are there, like in Sanskrit, for some of them, even if they don't kind of know the meanings, they find that kind of very calming, and also it provides like some good rhythm. So it can help with things like, say, if they have ADHD or things like that, right? Then even just like chanting without even knowing what the words are actually kind of saying. And so that's what I think Chinmaya, Balvihar, and others kind of like focus on, where they go when they're like in 5th grade or 4th grade, and then they participate in Gita competition. They learn the verses, but they don't really know the meaning. And that is also like a really great place to start, because then they're able to learn kind of different sounds that are there, like in Sanskrit, and then they're learning how to vocalize, and just having the ability to speak kind of more than one language and vocalize itself has like really nice changes in the brain, right? And so even that itself is like a good first step.
To build on what Sureshji is saying, I am also the chairman of Samskrita Bharati for United States. So we have, for example, we have something called a SAFL program, which means SAFL, Sanskrit as a foreign language. We are introducing in the school system. So we just had last weekend, we had the Snatakotsav, that means the graduation ceremony for some of the students who have graduated. So we have totally about 500 students who are learning Sanskrit in United States through the school system right now. So we have published regular Sanskrit grammar type of things. And we also have both students and adults actually are learning Sanskrit through Gita. So, for example, both adults and children, they go through various Gita chapters and various Gita slokas, and through that they are learning grammar. So what I have written to them, and I'm actually talking to them, is some of the Balasikshana teachers, people who teach to the youth through Sanskrit or through Gita, and I'm actually asking them to collaborate with us to develop certain material, and it translates some of them similes, translate some of the things and identify them, not from a grammar perspective, but from a health and well-being perspective, connecting. So like what, Sureshji also mentioned, the idea of trying to look at, number one, stories, because by the way, so just for, because we are all among the things and you know what I'm talking about and you are developing content, so I should mention how I approach it. There is, as some of you know, there are Shat Darshanas, 6 Darshana Shastras. Among them, the Nyaya Darshanam of Kapila is also something very meaningful. I found almost when I was in Apple, I got introduced to it thoroughly. So I had been working on how to bring, how to bring some of the concepts of Nyaya into actually the information sciences. Even in Apple, I was looking at methods of knowledge. There is one, K.T. Vardachari had written an English translation of Nyaya Darsana, and it was published by Tirumala Tirupati Devas temples in some 1970s or something. Why am I bringing that up? They talk about 4, if you look at from Advaitic school, And 6, if you want to look at it from Visishtadvaita, they say these are the methods that will connect with people. So when I tried it with youth, for example, Pratyaksha Pramana. So whatever you are presenting, if you start with certain thought experiments for youth, if you say something like, have you thought about, instead of you developing focus before you can get better, you have control over focus. If you look at it, they'll say, nope, I have problem with attention, problem with focus. That's why I am not able to do very well. I was actually having a conversation yesterday with a young man saying, I don't have attention span. Look at me. I'm actually constantly fidgeting. I'm doing this and I'm moving this. When you are talking to me, I don't have focus. So if you give me long passage, you will lose me. Don't give me a long lecture. So the first thing which we looked at was, okay, so I took from one of the meditation things, I asked him, okay, let us see what happens for the next one. Can you try out? I asked him, can you tell me when you are breathing in and breathing out, are you breathing in with both nostrils? Are you breathing out with both nostrils? He said, I assume I'm doing it through both nostrils. And I asked him, stop. Take a minute or two. Observe right now. He stopped, and after about a minute, there was a puzzlement and there was a smile, and said, I'm actually breathing in through right nostril. Then I asked him, okay, you're breathing in through the right nostril. Are you breathing out through the same nostril or different nostril or both nostrils? Then it took another couple of minutes for him to reflect on. Then he said, I'm breathing out through the right nostril. What's the purpose of my left nostril here? And interestingly, when he was doing the thought experiment, he was not fidgeting. He was not distracted. He was completely focused. Okay, let me not go deeper into it, but what it means is, if we can give a simple set of ways for them to discover within their direct experience, that first of all catches their attention. Anything that they try it out for themselves without hearing it from teachers, parents, read the books or something else, that is one. How do you start the Pratyaksha Pramana into them? By asking questions. So what kind of questions will be appropriate? And we have another intern that we have taken for our Institute of Indic Wisdom, a young lady who is about 22, 23. And so she, we are working with her on one of the projects. And when she looked at the other book which I wrote called Discontinuous Learning, and that book is about, actually, we say, you can think about it, Ramana Maharshi concepts without exactly addressing Ramana Maharshi, but helping people to see where is the discontinuity in your learning. Because if we don't have a discontinuity, there is no development. People learn, but learn it in a continuous manner. They don't challenge, they don't question. And unless we raise a question in their mind, unless we disrupt their thinking, if there is no disruption, there is growth, but there is no development. What it means is, we continually build on the mental models and mindsets and frameworks that we already have, and we keep on building it up. We keep on doing what we are very good at. When we get stuck or when we don't know the answer, instead of finding that answer, we will do more of what we know. In an adult language, you can say that if you take a person who is a great engineer and promote them as an engineering manager because they were very good and they need to be promoted, if they don't know how to deal with the team, what they will do is they will do more of engineering. And they will try to say, okay, this is how you do it. This is what I do. And I will show you more of it. What happens is, in that sense, they don't recognize or they don't acknowledge the inability to go in the direction where they need to go, but they will compensate it by doing more of what they know. So unless you directly challenge them and disrupt them, and when you disrupt their thinking, question their thinking, something begins to happen. By the way, disruption doesn't necessarily mean negative. Disruption means this is how you are thinking. Like, you are assuming you have two nostrils, so you breathe through two nostrils. But what are you really doing? By the way, this approach is called Neti, actually Anumana Pramanam. This is the second one after Pratyaksha Pramanam. This is called Neti, na iti, not that, not that, not that. So challenging people, disrupting people's mindsets because you love them and because you care for them and because you want them to really think differently, you create a discontinuity in their growth process, in their learning process. What are you doing? You are helping them to unlearn. You are helping them to question their assumptions. You are challenging the path on which they are in and saying, nope, that's not the path you should be on. When you do that, and when they get it, then they know that this is the way we have to grow. But now you challenge them, you stop them. It creates a gap first. If they are willing to stay in the gap of not knowing, unlearning takes place. And that unlearning is something that is very essential for people to really develop their own models, theories, and disrupt their mental model. The growth becomes really rapid. And that growth will be in a new path. That is what is called development. Development takes place in a very different way than learning, training, teaching, and growth. That's the reason why we don't remember most of our teachers. We remember only a few of our teachers, even though we don't remember anything that they have taught. So I'm speaking from the youth perspective. This second approach is extraordinarily important. Actually, even for adults, it is extraordinarily important. But unfortunately, we do not have enough people who are caring enough and they know us enough and they really like us enough to be able to disrupt our thinking. So we keep on doing. Now, that is second approach, especially for youth who are developing for, clear minds and strong opinions, especially in the 2020s, in the age of AI. They think they know, and with the social media, they take some data, they don't ever consider the conflicting data, but they build very, very strong paths in something. So that is second approach. We need to do that. And so for that student, yesterday we were talking about intern we are working with. She was saying, instead of starting with the content already, why don't we raise questions to them? So for youth, if you ask questions that they don't know the right answers, or they think they know the answers, you put all the answers and ask them, does the answer satisfy your curiosity? Does that satisfy your stress? Does that reduce your stress, your anxiety? Does that make you feel like you learned something new? Is there an energy shift? Is there a joy? Is there freedom? These are some very important elements that the Bhagavad Gita actually brings, or any of the spiritual literature. When we begin to know ourselves, when we develop the self-awareness, and when we develop it, we find the freedom, we find joy, we find clarity, and we find energy. These are the metrics that if we can begin to bring, because now they are no longer disconnected with themselves, disconnected with you, disconnected with the life itself. That is the spirit or consciousness, God, all of them. But if I use the word God, many of the youth these days seem to not connect as well. So we need to talk in their language. That is second approach. The third approach, so by the way, so in the Bhagavad Gita, I also in 1990s, when I used to give talks in the Bay Area, instead of talking about Gita directly, I used to, like Sureshji is doing, I used to ask only Arjuna's questions. There are about 67 or 70 somewhere, or maybe under 80. If you go through the all 18 chapters and look at the questions of Arjuna, without ever considering Krishna's answers, psychologically, and if you look at it, what is the developmental path, and what are the kind of questions that Krishna is asking, and do those questions tell a little bit more about what is the mental state that Arjuna is going through. So, for example, that is this one. And the third one I found is then upamanas and anumana, upamana pramana, it is called, the third one. That means similes and metaphors. Like Sureshji was mentioning, certain similes and metaphors in Bhagavad Gita are not approachable or not understandable by youth. And like Sureshji is using ChatGPT and some other technology. I think that's a phenomenal way to do it. If we can get some people, some youth, or like Rashmi, you and what you call Shaurya, and some of the youth, if they can put together in each chapter, let us say, what are some stories that are connected with some concepts in each chapter? What are some stories that will be relevant to messages in each chapter? What are some important shlokas in each chapter that are giving some key things? And then what are the metaphors and similes that you can take from each chapter? First, if you can identify them as we go through, and then build what you might call a dictionary, or some kind of a bibliography, or some kind of a way to correspond. Here are all the metaphors and similes in this chapter, and these are potentially ways that youth of today can understand. And if we can develop it, maybe some of it, maybe Sureshji already has developed or is working with the AI, with other things, can we find something? That is third one. By the way, it is important to remember when they say upamana, similes are very different, metaphors are very different. There is a lot that you can go, but I'm trying to make a very, very, very 35,000 feet, one principle of, Nyaya Shastra I'm talking about. Then comes Shabda Pramana. I'm not even going into Upalabdhi and Anupalabdhi and all of them. If I just stop with them, then you talk about quotes. In the Shabda Pramana means, that is where, oh, Krishna said this, Swami Chinmayananda said this, Sadguru said this. These quotes will become relevant, because quotes are the fourth one, Shabda Pramana. If I already have a belief, if I already trust and respect Swami Chinmayananda, then Swami Chinmayananda's quote from Bhagavad Gita on Bhagavad Gita will make sense to me. These days, they want to, you see, in United States, I found people will take a quote without worrying about who said it. Because United States, they are interested in the content and their own development. So that means I can come and do a workshop. If the content and the design, and if it looks good, they will attend without worrying about who am I. I found in India, when I used to do programs in the Indian School of Business, or when I go give a talk in State Bank of India, first they will try to find out whether I know more than they do. We get into, forgive my language, they'll get into a pissing contest. Because am I worth actually listening to? So there will be a lot of intellectual challenges, and there will be a lot of questioning. The answers that they know, but they want to see whether I know also, and whether my answers are something that they are worth listening to. So once they look at it, then they fall. Unfortunately, they will not take responsibility for themselves. They will fall at my feet as if I'm their teacher, I'm their guru. Then they want me to guide them completely. This, of course, there are problems in both approaches. Everybody cannot become a guru. There are specific characteristics. You talk about adhyapaka, upadhyaya, acharya, guru. So even in Amarakosham, there are different distinctions of what different kind of teachers can do. So for example, I tell people, I'm not a guru. I'm not attempting to be a guru. I'm a product manager. I'm trying to take Gita stuff and I'm trying to make it accessible. So this program is to help people to get interested in it so that they can go to various acharyas, various gurus, various people who specialize and who can go deep into doing some of this. So now you need to decide whether what you are doing for mental health and some of them, are you coming from a friend, or are you coming from a mother? Are you coming from an expert, or are you coming from a person who is yourself looking at your youth and what would you have done differently? So in Institute of Indic Wisdom, we talk about it, 4 roles that are necessary. We are introducing. This is not from Bhagavad Gita, but from entire Indic wisdom. We say in a team or in a group or in a place, we need to have 4 roles for them to be done. One is, first identify the karta role. What kind of a karta am I? That comes from Bhagavad Gita. Nishkama karma, kartrutvam and bhoktrutvam you need to look at. Agency, we call. The whole idea of, like in the 18th chapter, we talk about karta, karma, gnanam, buddhi, dhruti, sukham. There are ways of being rajasika karta, tamasika karta, and satvika karta, all of them. What I found is, first you need to be a kind of a karta. If I bring a metaphor from Ramayana, Rama is, of course, we talk about Vigrahavan Dharmaha, is the kind of way we talk about. But there are characteristics of Rama. When he is prepared for a task, whether it is going to war, whether it is going to forest, or whether he is taking on something else, there are 6 to 8 characteristics that they talk about: the curiosity, equanimity, enthusiasm, energy. There are variety of things. There is a certain kind of karta bhavana. Raghu talks about it. So I'm sure you might have talked about from Yoga Sutras also. Second one we discovered in Institute of Indic Wisdom with Raghu, Saiji, myself. There are several of us who are part of, Kalyan, Anand, they have been part of. We looked at it. Second role we need to do is Sakhi Bhavana. Of course, there is Sakhi Bhavana, Sakhitvam. We realize 2 things. One is the mental concept. First of all, understanding and getting my head around what does it mean to be a karta, what does it mean to be a Sakhi. These are called Karta Bhavana and Sakhi Bhavana. The second stage is bringing it into my experience. Kartrutvam, Sakhitvam, they have to come. What kind of a Sakhi am I going to be to a other person? Like youth, before we introduce the Bhagavad Gita for youth, for mental health, we need to become their Sakhi. By the way, even though Sakhi can be Sakha and Sakhi, In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna was the Sakha, Ishta Sakha, Priya Sakha. But many times I say, bringing in the feminine gender, Sakhi, Priya Sakhi, is actually a more appropriate way to be with youth. And so because they also anyway are influenced by peer group a lot more. So what kind of a Sakhi am I? And there are specific roles and all of them. I will not go into it, but if you want to in another time, we can talk about it. So Karta, Sakhi. The third one is Sakshi. This is talked about quite a bit. How can you help them to not only identify their Karta Bhavana, identify how they can be the best friend for themselves? See, that is one of the things which is missing that leads to mental unhealth, stress, because they don't have compassion for themselves. They don't accept themselves. There are so many societal expectations, family expectations, and other people expectations. They are in guilt, pride, and shame. This, in the psychological concept. As long as they are operating from there, they will not be able to bring certain amount of acceptance and compassion, self-compassion and self-acceptance. If they are not there, it is very difficult for them to have compassion with other people and all of them. So we need to help them to develop the Sakhi Bhavana. Can I be, hey, I made a mistake. I screwed up. I messed it up real big. Can I own it and can I talk to somebody? First, they will talk to their friends. Very rarely they come to their parents. So helping them to develop that Sakhi Bhavana for themselves and Sakhi Bhavana for each other. That is second. Third is Sakshi. Can I witness myself? It's like one definition in Sanskrit, they look at it. Swayam vibhati ata anyena sadhanam vina sakshi bhavati. What does that really mean? Swayam vibhati. It actually, sakshi bhavana, that means I am able to shine without any other help. Because Bhagavad Gita, what does it say? You are not just a human being. You are actually the divine. You don't know your roots. You have been born many times, Arjuna. But, because, if you remember 4th chapter, 5th chapter, he asked the question. You are talking about this one. You are my age. How the hell do you know all these things? Then he says, I have taken many births. You have taken many births, but you don't remember any of them. I remember them, so I'm telling you. So when he brings that ability to, tap into the Sakshi, anyena sadhanam vina, it actually shines by itself. It doesn't require anything else. It is not a moonlight, it is sunlight. That sunlight, we need to help children to bring it into themselves, develop themselves to see as an observer. So sometimes role plays work a lot. So if we are teaching mental health to them through Gita, we need to help them. I ask questions several times. You be Arjuna, you be Krishna. If Krishna were to tell you directly in this context, what would he tell? You don't need to know entire Bhagavad Gita, but just assume you are Arjuna. Of course, in a daily case, you can say, now, I'm talking to my daughter. I can say to her, if you were to be me, if you were to be dad, and I am Vidya and you are Prasad, what will you tell me in this situation? Many times they say, no, I can't think like that. I'm this. And then they'll keep going back to being Vidya. I have to really work with them in such a way they can pull themselves out of being Vidya and become Prasad. Even for a few seconds, they will be able to see something and say something about them that I don't have to ever say. Once they get to Sakshi role and see it, that makes disruption in their thinking. That is third role we need. Each person to develop kartrutvam, sakitvam, sakshitvam. And the fourth role, which has not been talked about as much, but we feel for 21st century it is very important, is called matrutvam, mata bhavana. Many of them do not have a relationship with their mother, even though from love and from deeper connection, they have a lot more with their mother than their father. If we can awaken the mother's unlimited, love without any barriers, if they can experience it from you, or they can, and ultimately they can experience it from themselves, that becomes regenerative. So, by the way, when we do workshops or some of them, I put people into groups of 4. First, they work with groups of 2, they work with groups of 3, then they work with groups of 4. So where one person takes the mother role, one person takes the Sakshi role, one person takes the Sakhi role, one person Karta, and then they rotate in small groups. When we are doing youth exercises, if we can do that and stay with them till they master all the 4 roles, at least in that context, then we give them exercises whenever they are in something so they can do. So what I'm trying to say is youth and health is extraordinarily important. If there is nothing more important right now than what you are working on. So there are ways to do it. Only thing is, summarizing, start with giving them thought experiments and direct experiences. They can try it out and challenge. Second is inference. That is what is called mathematics also. This is the reductio absurdum, it is called. What you call, whatever you cannot prove by logic, how to help them to transcend the cognitive and logical ways of doing it happens through this third one, the induction approach, or this kind of a way of Neti philosophy, Anumana Pramana. Then you can give them metaphors and similes, because whatever they have grokked, they have not yet grasped. What is grokked can be grasped through metaphors and similes. In the end, to solidify what they have picked up through questioning, through grokking, through grasping, to solidify it, then you give them quotes and references. So when we do that, then it becomes easier. So whatever you are doing for youth, so if you
Yes.
start this kind of an approach, it will be very, very powerful.
I'm so grateful for that. I'm feeling absolutely blessed and blessed out right now, and very grateful for you, sir, and Suresh also. Kalyan, sir, I would absolutely need this recording, because I was not able to write and note anymore, because I thought by writing I was missing something else. So I stopped writing. But I need to, go through this video again and again. But I have got a path to walk on. Thank you so much for today.
Sure. You're very welcome. And by the way, that's why, why Kalyan had forgotten to start the recording. So I told him, just please make sure you record, because any of these, your questions, these are the grounded. By the way, this is exactly what we are doing, right? In the other session also, we are trying to say, how do you practice? Where can you apply? What can you practice? So that's why our Gita that we are evolving will be something that our contribution to each other and to our next generation. So we are all becoming Arjunas. So I didn't plan on saying whatever I said.
Sureshji? Sureshji, I would really love to have, those bots that you've prepared, stories and similes. I would like to go through them, and, if you can just share me the links or whatever, I would want to, just play around with them for a while.
Yeah. Sounds good. And then what we can do is, next week in Seattle, So I'm also going to do a talk, and then I will be doing some demo, right? So I will share kind of the link to the talk. I think we are looking forward to Prasadji's excellent talk, and we have like several workshops. So in that I will be sharing. So I'll send some links, but I think sometimes like doing the demonstration gives kind of like that pratyaksha pramana, and then you actually have that more concrete thing. So in addition to everything that Prasadji kind of said, so one thing that I have found with youth is that they have different role models, right?
Yes.
So they may actually prefer prefer like a cricket star, right? Or they may prefer like a tennis star. And I've heard this like really amazing commencement speech by Roger Federer. And one of the projects that I want to do is that to be able to connect many of the things, the three things he said to Gita, because they're all directly like connected. And those are sort of other ways in which you can engage them, because Roger Federer might be more directly connected to them than a Krishna or a Arjuna, right? So those are sort of other ways in which you can kind of bring this also. Right?
Excellent point. And I actually posted Roger Federer's on my LinkedIn, the entire speech, not just the one which they showed in Tennis Channel, and the 15 minutes or 20 minutes speech, I put it on LinkedIn. And second thing which I also build on what you are saying, Sureshji, is movies. Some of the movies, children, there is a movie called Legend of Bagger Vance. It's a movie from 1999 or 2000. It's a Matt Damon, Will Smith, Charlize Theron movie, English movie. The guy who wrote that movie, it is from a book called The Legend of Bagger Vance by Stephen Pressfield. He's the guy who wrote. Actually, he talks about Karma Yoga, Gnana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga in that book. But Robert Redford, when he created the movie, he did not touch upon it. But actually, the entire movie is Gita on the Green. That means people think it's a golf movie, but it's actually the Bhagavad Gita applied to
I saw the movie.
Gita and my modern context. So I have used that movie over 250 times in my programs in past 30 years or 20 years. And I know every dialogue. I have, what you call, got like 500 copies of the movies and gave it to various people. State Bank of India from 2006 to 2010, and in Tata Steel and in United States, there are several companies who have actually used several sequences for their transformation leadership programs. I have used it and they have you done. Like that, there are several different movies. Matrix is one more. And in terms of animated movies, there are some movies I use. So I have used clips, movies, YouTube videos, TED Talks. Some of them we can connect it to create a media library to be used, not just a book or a text or something. I think Kalyanji is working with the media, trying to put together some of them so that whatever we are saying is not just written, but it has got links and visual elements and quiz or questionnaire. And last thing I'll say is I have developed a profile based on Bhagavad Gita. It's called a mood profile. And in the book which I wrote called From Smart to Wise in 2013, that's a book which actually takes the framework from Bhagavad Gita. I created from 18th chapter, I mentioned the 6 things. Like I think shloka 20 to 36, I think, or 38. It's 20 to 38 in chapter 18. Krishnaji talks about the Gnanam, Karma, Karta, Buddhi, Dhruti, Sukham. But he puts it in Sattvic, Rajasic, and Tamasic gunas. And what I did was, I took this matrix, 6x3 matrix, I developed a questionnaire, and I tried to contextualize in Vyavaharika terms rather than Paramarthika terms, because Paramarthika terms, Tamasic is a useless fellow. We should never be tamasic. We should get out of all of it. But the world runs by 60 to 80% being tamasic, because the reason why Boeing recently has been in a lot of trouble is it stopped being enough tamasic. What does it mean? Tamasic means focusing on the concrete, focusing on here and now, focusing on quality, focusing on delivery, focusing on completion. These are something, cost, quality, delivery, customer satisfaction is what we talk about everywhere. Any manufacturing, any product requires enough tamasic so that it is worthwhile to become, usable, repeatable, high quality, dependable, all of that happens. Similarly, many of the functional roles which we play require tamasic autopilot to be developed very well. Then comes the business smart, that is the Rajasic, where people are marketing, they look at big picture, they look at overall stuff. They don't go deep into what is going on. They take a lot of risks. There is a lot of ego. There is a lot of pride. There is a lot of vision. They operate at a vision level, not at implementation and details level. That's also very required. Those are the people who are great salespeople, marketing people, CEOs, business heads. We need them, but we also need functional people who deliver various things and implement various things, which is about tamasic. Third is the sattvic, which is from Bhagavad Gita context, Sita Prajna Lakshanas work very well. Sita Prajna is the question of a wise person or a sattvic person. So I took this metaphor. I interviewed like about 50 to 60 CEOs and senior executives from around the world. I developed this 18 question for 6x3 makes it 18. 18 questions I wrote in my book. And I have a profiler which is more like I have a 100 question profiler, and I have a 46 question profiler, mood profile, which is completely based on Bhagavad Gita interpretations, but used for personality development. My sense is we may need to refine it. I just gave it to Anand and Kalyan and Saiji and a few of them to fill out. Next week, I will actually work with them and how that works. And if any of you want, I'll be happy to send it out. I was thinking we'll do it at a later time when the 18th chapter comes, but I could do it at any time. And I used to use it in my executive coaching, especially for CEOs from around the world. They were like fascinated that there is so much, just as they fill it out and as they go through the key, they can see what are they doing right, what are they not doing right, how could they do better. We can develop one for the youth as the time evolves. So for personality development, or right up front, we can have a baseline of where are they, are they primarily Rajasic in this, but Tamasic in there, and Sattvic in it. How do we look at it? How do we work with it? How do we coach them? Can be developed completely based on Bhagavad Gita. So there are variety of tools I have worked on and I have thought about to my capability. This is only something which I've been doing from 1990, application of Gita and Vedanta into management. Whatever I have, I'll be happy to make them available so we can take it forward as we discuss and as we evolve. So please start the work, Rashmi. I think whatever you have done and whatever it is, we can continue to have sessions. and we'll introduce you
Yeah.
to Shaurya, we'll introduce you to other people, and Suresh ji. So some of us, we can work on, and then in the youth group, there are several people, as you know, in the small groups of our Gita project. There are people who are interested in this. So if you can keep
Yeah.
posting and if we can keep looking at it, we will end up with something very meaningful.
Yes. Hopefully. Yes.
Anything else? Any comments from any of you? Anand ji, Kalyan ji, Suresh ji.
Yeah,
Yeah, I made a
so
lot
I've
of
only
notes. Go ahead.
participated in. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Ananchi.
No, I was just saying, yeah, I made a lot of notes as you're talking, Prasadji, and yeah, I can see, different layers and aspects to how the curriculum could be, developed towards youth based on what you said. Uh, yeah, this is a passion of mine as well. So, yeah, anything I can do, I'll be happy to. Yeah.
That'll be great. I have had students in developmental psychology, cognitive psychology, and clinical psychology. I'm not a clinical psychologist, but I was a professor in Saybrook University, where I had several students who were in the clinical psychology discipline because I was working on what you call, we had organizational systems, psychology, and philosophy, humanistic psychology, and some of them. So I had master students and PhD students worked on some of these topics, but they did not, say like in 1990s when I went and spoke in Boeing in front of Alan Malali, when I said this experience was spiritual, there was a collective gasp in the entire room. The whole room became silent. Then at lunchtime, he was coming and saying, "What did you do? You used the yes word in office." But he also said, "You used the yes word that really opened up. It's like now genie is out of the bottle." 777 design team completely got transformed because by my using the word spiritual, they got freed up to be spiritual and connect the dots. Now this is 2024, 20 years later. But my sense is now there is a lot more freedom to use the word spiritual in the companies. But the fear is still the dominant one. Like, Intel, I used to work with some of the executives. One of the previous CEOs wrote the book saying the fear should be the driving factor for growth. So we have different things. I think there is a lot that we can do at this moment to bring it. And I'll be happy to connect and reconnect with some of my friends and who have worked in this particular one. There is, by the way, somebody remind me later, there is a lady, I think Anant, you have come across Kali.
Yeah.
Kali is a psychologist. She works with youth. She is in the Bay Area. And she also spent time with me and some other things in Yoga Bharati. We have something called a Yoga Bharati in Bay Area. So I am on the board of that also. We work with something. And this lady, she grew up with yoga and some other perspectives, and she did her master's. She is doing her PhD right now in Berkeley in some other things. So I can try to see whether she is open to work with us on this project, Youth and Gita. So these are some things which I can say. And anything else you want to add, Suresh ji, Kalyan ji, or Rashmi ji? I don't know
No,
whether
I
Anand
think you've
hit Suresh ji.
yeah you've covered a lot of kind of good points, and I think one sort of final thing is that sometimes they prefer to work on projects that are of interest to them. And if you're able to kind of uh, engage them to connect this within the scope of their project, then and the project might be like horizontal, might be like making TikTok videos, right? Might be their interest. But if you're able to connect this and that, then they kind of get to do what they want to do. But then they're also kind of learning, kind of like in the process.
Yeah.
Where I found that youth, at least in the US, they just don't like teaching, but they like
Yes.
kind of like more doing. And so if you can unlock kind of more of their doing, then that will open up even new learning for us as because you sort of see different perspectives that they're kind of like having.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
I think
Yeah, I just had a couple of other kind of comments, not really related to the youth. So in my limited experience in the last couple of sessions that I've been, so I found that there is a range of people. I think Prasadji also kind of mentioned. So there are some people who uh, have read, say, Bhagavad Gita a long time ago, or who just have some high level kind of like overview, but they don't actually kind of uh, have even say what is this chapter kind of about, right? Some kind of like overview. So I'm going to continue to send those like Dr. G's kind of videos, but they're still like an hour long, right? And I don't know if people have like bandwidth for like 1 hour to take. So to ensure that the discussion, and they're all kind of skilled in their different areas. Um, so one suggestion, and maybe this is more suggestion for Kalyanji, is that if you can identify people who already have good Gita experience, and then you connect them in those kind of different breakout rooms, then they will automatically get like a person or a couple of people who may be a good resource, right? So that in that small kind of discussion room, they may actually be able to, even if they have not read the chapter, or even if they have not, they may be able to get a few things from that. So that's one suggestion based on my experience, where there is a wide range of like people, right? And people have deep expertise in what they're doing, but uh, they may not have like any, and they're like very eager to learn, right? But they may not have any experience with Bhagavad Gita, and then having them like to do it all on their own. Okay, read the sixth chapter. So it might be a little bit like intimidating. And
Yeah,
so we
sharing the
can
videos is
basically,
very good. I've been
yeah.
watching the videos that you shared of Dr. Raju. They're very good. Uh, you know, they're nice and I wouldn't say concise, but detailed enough, and yet within the bounds of an hour, he does a really good job of unpacking it. Yeah, yeah. Please keep sending those.
Yeah,
Dr.
yeah, I'll do that. Yeah, I'll do that, and then we can also kind of offer like either within the breakout room or things like that, right? Because people seem
Yeah.
to, in my experience, people have very limited time, and then they want to kind of get something from this that they can kind of quickly apply, which is always a bit challenging because some of these things take time.
Yeah.
And I
And
think
I
someone gave that.
experienced some of what you're saying, Suresh, actually. I've been part of a few of the sessions in the communications track, and that's also a little bit esoteric because they're a meta level to Bhagavad Gita, right? So you're trying to understand the communication patterns and the best practices from Bhagavad Gita. So at times I felt some knowledgeable person being in the room and unpacking it would take us much farther than what how many of our blind people are trying to grok in that breakout room. So yeah.
One thing which
Oh
we
yeah,
could
thanks.
do, if you like, maybe the next session we can actually touch upon those. We can look at and see how it is working. Small groups, do they want to change? Can we, like some of the points which you are raising, Sureshji, and maybe we can bring that up and say, hey, would you like to do that, or how do we do that? Of course, there are some people who are saying, I didn't attend some other sessions. I haven't watched the video of it. I haven't completely read the chapter. I read only these three things and this was very useful. So I'm willing to be a fly on the wall. I want to attend. I may not get the maximum out of it, but I feel it is allowing me to enter the field of Gita and develop interest in it. So I'm coming to this. And so how do we get them to take the next step of what Sureshji is mentioning and some of you are mentioning? Maybe we could raise it and see whether people are willing to take the challenge to the next step. Any other thoughts, comments, questions? I think this was very useful. I think it is good that we had a small group. Of course, there are three of us, three of them dropped out, Atul, Shyam, and I think Satya. Maybe they have some other work, or they didn't have any questions, or they got what they got. But I'm willing to continue doing it. Let us see how these small group sessions, which will allow us to go deep into one topic and take it to the next step. What do you think?
Yes,
Should
sir,
we
I agree.
continue this?
At least for the next 2-3 weeks, we should continue and
Yeah.
see how things move.
Thank you so much. As I already shared, it was wonderful for me. Thank you, Anand, Shirishi, Kalyani, Prasadji.
So, are we done? Shall we stop? Or you have any other questions?
Just
Then,
one quick suggestion that comes to mind is if there's a place where we can, maybe like a Google Docs or something, where we can compile good resources, right? For example, good commentaries, especially at an introductory level. So when we search in the open web, right, there's so many varieties from so many authors, right? Sometimes it's overwhelming and lost. For example, you mentioned about Arjuna's 17 questions. What are the top two introductory essays on understanding Arjuna's questions? So things like that would be interesting side angles and pursuits without newbies getting overwhelmed.
I think it is an excellent idea to have a resource page where people can click on it and go to hyperlinks. Sureshji, your some of the links which you have mentioned, Dr. Raju's lectures, and maybe even Gita Super Site by IIT Kanpur. So there are several such things which we can begin to ask and then ask people to put it and add to that list and create something on practical applications of Gita, or some of the things. Even if we see articles, videos, like you mentioned, Sureshji, about Roger Federer, or I mentioned about the movies. So if we can begin to put, only thing is, let us not just put the reference. Let us write about what you can find, why we are putting it, and what value you can get out of it. Just if we can write 1 or 2 lines about the
That's
site
excellent. Yeah.
and who it can be maximum useful for, and then put it, it becomes valuable. So don't quote unless you can bring your own perspective to it. That is what sometimes people say, because otherwise, like in WhatsApp, you see million forwards. I am getting between 700 to 1,000 messages a day. And going through the useless stuff, I miss some of the good stuff also. Same thing with emails. So what I do is, unless somebody writes to me directly, if I'm in the copy, I don't look at the mail, period. I found that it is not worth it. If it is important enough for me to do something, they will write to me again. So that way I can save so much of time. So, and I also, same thing, if somebody just sends me something, I don't want to spend 1 hour to find out 3 points which you want me to pick it up. If you are going to send me something, tell me these are 3 points. By the way, if you want to know, go in here, this is what is meaningful. I find those are useful. Otherwise, my even phone memory of 128 gigabyte is not enough to deal with all the garbage that comes through from WhatsApp. I'm sure each of you must have faced the same kind of problems to different levels.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So we
no, I think
can
that's a good
help the
idea.
curate. Yes, sir. Go ahead, Sureshji.
A good idea, Anandji. So maybe a Google Doc we can start with, or like even just a simple website where there is a little bit of like explanation, like what Prasadji is saying, right? Like Gita on the green, right? I love that that tagline. And then discuss about the Bagger Vance movie, or um, about the super
Matrix.
site, or
Yeah.
any of those things, right? And we can make it like community, so that the community can kind of put resources and share. Yeah, I think that could be a good output of like our Gita, so that by the end of it we will have like a nice collection of resources.
I think
Yeah.
so.
Only thing
Maybe
I'll
even
add to that.
our Gita website. Go ahead, Anand.
Yeah. I was saying, only thing I'll add to that is I'm a bit concerned about this getting quickly into another landfill of Gita links, right? So we crowdsource it, but then curate a finite number so that it's useful and consumable, and people actually get value out of it. You know.
That's why I said, let us not just put the links. Let us have
Yeah.
comments and curate. So somebody can curate. And maybe, as you rightly said, Sureshji, not just a Google page, a simple website,
Yeah.
which will do our Gita project. Somebody had suggested Gita in Action, GIA project, or something like that. Gita in Action project, or whatever. It's easy to create a one-page website that will provide the links to get into WhatsApp, to get into LinkedIn things and resources. Simple one-page website. If we can get one of volunteers, or interns or somebody to do that, I think we should focus on it.
It could also be I mean, if we leverage the LinkedIn group that we have created, if you can leverage that, strengthen it. Okay, or maybe we can create another page, our Gita page on LinkedIn.
Right.
Somehow I'm saying that property that we have created, if you can leverage and build and strengthen it, it could possibly be a good idea. We can
Sure.
think on those lines.
We can think on that. Last thing I'll say, and then I forgot. So whatever. But it is 8 o'clock. Can we close it with an invocation again? Shanti mantra. But I appreciate each of you and what you have brought in and contributed. This small group conversation is for me really, it's like a wonderful breakfast, because this is a morning for me. I feel my heart is full, and I appreciate each of you.
Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.
Oh, my heart is reverberating. Thank you, Kalyanji. That brought a lot of
Thank
beautiful resonance.
thank you.
Have a wonderful evening, day, wherever you are. Look forward to seeing you on Sunday. Thank you.
Thank you.